If you think you've heard every billionaire family scandal, think again. Because when a terrifying, uncontrollable heiress drove away every bodyguard, tutor, therapist, and nanny, only one man, a quiet, single black janitor, stepped in and did the impossible. Before we begin, smash that subscribe button, because this story will pull you in, shake you up, and leave you wondering how much power a single act of courage can hold. The world had always whispered about the Sinclair family, but nothing made people whisper more than the one thing money, real money, couldn't fix. The billionaire's daughter, Alara Sinclair, a storm of brilliance, cruelty, grief, and fire wrapped inside a single 19-year-old girl who had already destroyed the careers of 15 personal aides, 6 elite security trainers, 4 psychologists, and 1 ex-special forces babysitter who swore he'd rather return to active duty than spend another day watching over the girl whose wrath could make grown men tremble. And yet everything truly started the night Elijah Cross, the quiet, single black janitor who had been sweeping the same marble floors for 3 years without anyone ever learning his backstory, caught her in the east parking garage at 3:17 a.m., barefoot, trembling, mascara streaked down her cheeks, holding a half-shattered bottle of 100-year-old whiskey she had stolen from her father's hidden collection, muttering to herself that she hated the world, hated the cameras, hated the power she never asked for, and hated most of all that nobody believed she could be anything other than the monster they called the billionaire's curse. Elijah had seen broken people before. He had survived things the Sinclair family would never imagine, coming from a background where pain wasn't a dramatic family tragedy but a daily reality, and when Alara hurled the bottle at him, missing him by inches, he didn't flinch, didn't shout, didn't scold, instead he whispered, "You're hurting. And you want someone to finally see it," and those 9 words cracked something inside her that billions of dollars worth of experts had failed to reach. She tried to lunge at him, screaming for him to shut up, but she collapsed, sobbing instead, and Elijah, who had once raised 4 younger siblings alone after losing both parents, knew how to anchor a storm, so he sat on the cold concrete beside her, letting her cry until dawn crept in through the high windows. When security finally found them, Alara shocked everyone by grabbing Elijah's sleeve and growling, "He stays." And that was the moment the impossible began. Mr. Sinclair, Arthur Sinclair III, was a man used to controlling governments, corporations, and entire markets, but even he couldn't control his only child, so when she demanded that Elijah accompany her everywhere, he summoned the janitor to his office, offering him a triple-figure salary increase, a penthouse suite, and a personal non-disclosure contract, but Elijah refused most benefits, asking only for one thing: "Let me talk to her, really talk to her, without your cameras, without your guards, without your executives hovering around." Arthur agreed because he was desperate, but also because Elijah's stillness, his calm, rattled him more than the Navy SEAL who had quit last month. For weeks Elijah watched Alara explode at the world, throwing crystal glasses at walls, hacking her father's surveillance drones, sneaking into secret stockholder meetings just to unleash chaos, and with every outburst Elijah responded not with fear but with soft questions that cut deeper than knives. What are you protecting? Who failed you? What do you need that no one bothered to give? And slowly, painfully, Alara began revealing the truth, the kidnapping attempt when she was 9 that left her distrustful of everyone, the pressure to inherit a trillion-dollar dynasty she had no interest in, the feeling that every human being she met only wanted her money, not her soul. She was brilliant, strategic, artistic, and lonely beyond measure. Elijah wasn't intimidated by her power, wasn't impressed by her name, and wasn't scared of her rage, and in return she found herself telling him things she had never told anyone, not even her father. But as the Sinclair board began whispering that Elijah was manipulating the heiress, and tabloids began noticing a mysterious man always walking beside Alara, rumors sparked a storm that turned deadly when someone inside the corporation decided that Elijah Cross needed to be neutralized before he got too close to the inheritance no outsider should ever influence. The conspiracy against Elijah started quietly, a whisper in private boardrooms, a forged email here, a staged incident there, designed to make him look dangerous, unstable, or opportunistic, and it grew worse when a mysterious black SUV began tailing him home every night, headlights off, windows tinted, moving like a predator staying just outside the reach of street lamps. Elijah didn't tell Alara, not wanting to burden her, but Alara, supernaturally perceptive, noticed everything, secretly hacking into security networks to trace the SUV's plates, only to discover they belonged to a subsidiary company owned by her father's most ruthless board member, Damian Roker, a man who had always wanted to control the Sinclair empire by pushing Arthur Sinclair into premature retirement and forcing Alara into a position where she'd have no choice but to depend on him. When Alara confronted her father, Arthur swore he had no knowledge of the surveillance and demanded Elijah accept a full security detail, but Elijah refused, saying, "If I let fear change me, then I can't help your daughter change herself." Alara, furious at both men's stubbornness, began plotting her own counterattack, and one night she dragged Elijah into her private underground tech lab, a neon-lit room full of custom-built servers, holographic displays, and inventions even the government didn't know she'd created, and said, "If they want to destroy you, then they'll have to get through me first." Elijah tried to protest, but Alara ignored him, launching a digital operation to expose the conspiracy, only to accidentally trigger a trap Roker had embedded in the corporate system, initiating a complete lockdown across the Sinclair estate. Doors sealed, alarms blared, and a robotic security protocol, designed to neutralize intruders, activated and targeted Elijah, labeling him an external threat. The lights flickered, mechanical shutters slammed down, and red targeting lasers danced across the walls. Elijah pushed Alara behind him just as a drone fired a stun round that grazed his shoulder. Alara screamed, hacked the drones midair, and crashed them into the marble floor, sparks flying everywhere. Desperate, she dragged Elijah into a maintenance shaft only he knew about, because he had cleaned it for years, and they crawled through darkness while security forces swarmed the estate, believing they were protecting Alara from him. In their hiding place, Elijah's wound bled heavily, and Alara, panicking, pressed her shaking hands against it, whispering, "You're the only one who ever treated me like I mattered. Don't die, don't you dare die." Elijah laughed through the pain. "I'm not going anywhere," but his eyes dimmed, and Alara, terrified beyond words, carried him, literally lifted him, through the shaft to a forgotten exit that led into the old greenhouse her late mother used to love. There she tended his wound, shaking so hard she dropped the first aid kit twice, tears dripping onto his shirt as she whispered the truth she never had the courage to say, "I'm not afraid of the world anymore. I'm afraid of losing you." But before Elijah could respond, the greenhouse door creaked open and Arthur Sinclair entered, not with anger, not with guards, but alone, face pale, hands raised. He knelt beside Elijah and whispered, "My daughter has never cried for anyone, until you. Tell me what you need, and I'll give it." Elijah, barely conscious, simply said, "Trust her. Let her control her own life. And stop protecting her so much that she can't breathe." Arthur nodded, promising to dismantle the corrupt parts of the board and clear Elijah's name, but as they stepped out of the greenhouse, Roker himself appeared with 2 armed mercenaries, sneering, "You think you can take the company from me? I built it while you pampered your unstable daughter." Arthur shielded Alara. Elijah shoved himself between them despite the pain, and the tension snapped when Roker lifted his weapon. But before a bullet could fly, Alara, who had silently hacked into Roker's biometric chip minutes earlier, locked his gun's mechanism, causing it to jam, then unleashed a broadcast to every Sinclair shareholder exposing Roker's crimes, the kidnapping attempt from her childhood he secretly orchestrated, and his illegal operations hidden beneath Sinclair subsidiaries. The mercenaries dropped their weapons instantly. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Roker was dragged away screaming that the Empire would fall without him. And as the lockdown finally lifted, Alara turned to Elijah, voice breaking, "You saved my life even when I made yours hell." "Why?" Elijah answered, "Because someone once saved me when I didn't believe I was worth saving, and I won't let you become someone who thinks they're alone." But the biggest twist hadn't arrived yet, because Alara had one final secret she had never told anyone, a truth that would change everything for Elijah and the Sinclair family. The secret Alara carried inside her was older than her rage, older than her rebellion, older even than the kidnapping attempt that shaped her into a weapon, because the truth was that Alara had a photographic memory that extended far beyond normal limits, allowing her to recall every face, every word, every moment of her life since the age of 3. And buried deep within that perfect memory was the reason she had always felt connected to Elijah the moment she saw him. Years ago, when she was 9 and traumatized from the kidnapping attempt, she had tried to run away from the estate in the middle of the night, barefoot, terrified, and lost, and a young man working the night shift, Elijah, then only 19, found her wandering the service tunnels, gently carried her back, wrapped her in his coat, and whispered, "You're safe now," before being fired the next morning for stepping into restricted areas, a detail he never mentioned because he didn't want her to feel guilty. But Alara remembered. She remembered everything. And when Elijah returned years later as a janitor, hired unknowingly during staff restructuring, she recognized him instantly but pretended not to, terrified he would disappear again if she acted too attached, so she built walls, lashed out, created chaos, waiting for someone strong enough to break through, and Elijah was the only one who ever had. When she revealed this truth, Elijah froze, stunned, realizing he had unknowingly saved her twice in his lifetime, and Alara whispered, "I wasn't angry at the world, I was angry you never came back." Emotions crashed between them with the weight of years unspoken, but their moment was interrupted by Arthur entering the room with a decision that would shake everything. He announced he was stepping down as CEO immediately and naming Alara as his successor, but with Elijah as her chief personal advisor. The board erupted in outrage, media exploded, analysts predicted chaos, but Alara stepped into her new role with a calmness nobody expected, her first executive order being to dismantle the abusive divisions Roker created, her second being to launch a new ethical tech wing under Elijah's leadership, a move that shocked the financial world because Elijah had never been anything more than a janitor in the public eye. Yet he thrived, using his lived experience of struggle, resilience, and community to transform Sinclair Industries from a predatory juggernaut into a humanitarian powerhouse, earning global respect. Of course, not everyone celebrated the change. Old enemies resurfaced, tabloids fabricated scandals, Alara faced sexist board members who couldn't tolerate a young woman in charge, and Elijah was targeted by online mobs who questioned how a janitor could possibly deserve such influence, but together they faced everything, building systems stronger than wealth, systems based on loyalty, courage, and truth. Months later, during a press interview, a reporter attempted to humiliate Alara by asking if a man, so much lower in status, was truly fit to stand beside a Sinclair. Alara leaned into the microphone, stared the reporter down, and said, "Elijah Cross didn't rise to my level. I rose to his." That quote went viral instantly across the USA and UK. Years passed, the company flourished, and one evening on the rooftop of the Sinclair Tower, beneath a sky full of city lights, Elijah finally told Alara the truth he had held back since the first night they spoke in the parking garage: the impossible wasn't fixing you. It was watching you fix the world. And Alara, who had once been a storm no one could handle, leaned into him and whispered, "You didn't fix me. You saw me, and that made me unstoppable." Together, they became the story the world never expected, a billionaire's daughter and the single black janitor who did the impossible, not by using power, but by understanding the one thing money could never buy, the courage to care when everyone else walked away.